In the vast and unforgiving expanse of the 41st millennium, the Necrons, ancient and malevolent, lie dormant in their tomb worlds, awaiting the time to reclaim their lost empire. On the desolate planet of Conifer, a team of explorers from the Adeptus Mechanicus unwittingly awaken a terrifying force from its ageless slumber. The sky over Conifer was a tapestry of swirling, unnatural colors, reflecting the planet's turbulent history. Magos Explorator Artelius, leading the expedition, peered at the ancient structures jutting out from the barren landscape. His team, an assembly of tech priests and servitors, were on the brink of a discovery that could change the fate of the Imperium. Brothers, we stand on the threshold of knowledge, a world untouched since the days of Old Night, Artelius intoned through his voxcaster. Let us reveal its secrets in the name of the Omnissiah. The ruins of Conifer were a labyrinth of towering obelisks and deep catacombs etched with hieroglyphs that predated humanity's ascent. As the explorers delved deeper, unsettling whispers seemed to echo through the corridors, though no source could be found. It was when they breached the central chamber that reality unraveled. A pulse of eerie green light erupted from an ancient dais, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. "By the machine god, what have we done?" whispered Tech Priest Calix as a chilling wind swept through the chamber. The Necron specters, ethereal and vengeful, emerged from the walls and floors, their forms flickering like mirages. They were the guardians of the tomb world, remnants of consciousness bound to their decaying realm, and they did not take kindly to intruders. Artelius and his team found themselves trapped, the specters closing in with silent malice. Each wraith-like figure was a nightmare made manifest, their eyes glowing with a malevolent light. The tech priests' weapons, advanced as they were, passed through the specters as if they were mere shadows. The explorers were driven back, panic rising in their mechanical hearts. "We must retreat," Artelius declared, his voice distorted by fear. "The Omnissiah did not prepare us for this." As they fled, the specters pursued, phasing through walls and floors with eerie grace. The catacombs became a maze of terror, the path back to the surface lost amidst the chaos. In the dark, the explorers' faith in the machine god was tested. Servitors, their minds unable to cope with the horror, malfunctioned and collapsed. Tech priests prayed in binary cant, seeking solace from their deity, but the specters were relentless. The true nature of the Necron specters began to reveal itself. They were not merely guardians, they were echoes of the past, remnants of a civilization that had traded their souls for immortality. And in their endless vigil, they had grown mad with grief and rage. Calix, separated from the group, stumbled upon a chamber filled with stasis crypts. Each crypt held a Necron warrior, their metallic bodies inert yet menacing. He realized with horror that the awakening of the specters was just the beginning. The Necrons were stirring, ready to reclaim their dominion over the galaxy. Back in the central chamber, Artelius faced the spectral host alone. His mind, augmented by cybernetics, sought to understand their purpose. In a moment of terrifying clarity, he realized that the specters were bound to the tomb world, their existence a curse for disturbing the slumber of their kin. With a desperate plan, Artelius activated a series of seismic charges they had placed earlier for excavation. The explosion rocked the catacombs, the ancient structures crumbling under the force. As the tomb world collapsed around them, the specters howled in anguish, their forms dissolving into the ether. Artelius and the few surviving members of his team raced to the surface, the ground splitting apart beneath their feet. They emerged into the chaos of a world tearing itself apart, the awakening of the Necrons triggering a catastrophic chain reaction. Their ship, orbiting above, descended through the debris to retrieve them. As they ascended into the stars, leaving Conifer to its fate, Artelius looked back at the dying planet. He had sought knowledge, but at what cost? The specters of Conifer were a warning, a reminder of the dangers that lurked in the forgotten corners of the galaxy. The Adeptus Mechanicus would study the data for centuries to come, but the haunting whispers of the Necron specters would forever echo in Artelius's mind. In the grim darkness of the far future, some secrets are better left undiscovered, and some tombs better left unopened. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, where the Imperium of Man battles against the encroaching chaos of the galaxy, there exist horrors beyond comprehension. On the desolate frontier world of Mortara, an Imperial base stands as a lone sentinel against the darkness. But an ancient forgotten terror stirs beneath its feet, the Necron Flayed Ones. The wind howled over the barren plains of Mortara, carrying with it the scent of death and decay. Captain Julius Virax, commander of the Imperial outpost, gazed out from the battlements, his eyes scanning the lifeless horizon. The base was a bulwark of mankind's might, but in the heart of its commander, an unspoken fear lingered. "Report, Sergeant," Virax demanded, turning to face his second-in-command, Sergeant Lorne. "All quiet, sir. The men are uneasy. They say they hear whispers in the wind," Lorne replied, his voice tinged with unease. Virax scoffed. "Superstitious nonsense. Maintain vigilance. The Emperor protects." That night, the base was shaken to its core. Alarms blared as the perimeter was breached. Virax and Lorne rushed to the command center, expecting an orc raid or a chaos incursion. What they found was far more terrifying. The monitors showed scenes of carnage. The guards at the perimeter were being slaughtered by assailants that seemed to appear out of thin air, skeletal figures shrouded in tattered cloaks of human skin, their metallic limbs glistening in the moonlight. The Necron Flayed Ones had awakened. Virax rallied his men, leading them into the fray. The Flayed Ones were relentless, their ancient Gauss weapons tearing through armor and flesh with ease. But these Necrons sought more than just killing. They were driven by a grotesque hunger, stripping the skin from their victims and draping it over their own metallic forms in a macabre parody of humanity. The battle raged throughout the night, the Imperial Guardsmen fighting desperately against an enemy that knew neither fear nor pain. As dawn broke, Virax and a handful of survivors regrouped in the command bunker. "We must evacuate," Virax declared, his face pale with shock. "We can't hold against these abominations." But as they prepared to flee, they discovered the true extent of the horror. The Flayed Ones had infiltrated the bunker, moving unseen through the shadows. They were not just hunters, they were infiltrators, sowing terror and confusion. The base descended into chaos, each soldier suspecting his comrade of being a skin-clad monster. Trust eroded, leaving only paranoia and fear. In this atmosphere of dread, the Flayed Ones thrived, picking off the guardsmen one by one. Sergeant Lorne, gripped by terror, stumbled upon a horrifying scene. In the medical bay, a Flayed One stood over the bodies of fallen comrades, its claws delicately peeling skin from flesh, draping it over itself like a ghastly cloak. Its face, if it could be called that, was a mockery of a human visage, the skin ill-fitting over its metallic skull. Lorne's scream alerted the creature. In a moment, it was upon him, its claws sinking into his flesh. But before it could finish its gruesome work, Virax arrived, firing his bolt pistol. The Flayed One staggered back, the impact of the bolts tearing through its stolen skin. Virax grabbed Lorne, dragging him to safety. "We need to get off this planet," he gasped. "These things, they're not just killing us, they're wearing us." The survivors made a desperate break for the evacuation shuttle, fighting their way through the base now crawling with Flayed Ones. As they boarded the shuttle, Varax took one last look back at the base. It was a charnel house, a monument to the insatiable hunger of the Necron-flayed ones. As the shuttle soared into the sky, leaving Mortara behind, Varax knew that this was not the end. The flayed ones were a plague, a terror that would spread throughout the galaxy. And somewhere, in the dark recesses of space, the ancient tomb worlds of the Necrons stirred, ready to unleash their skinless harvest upon an unsuspecting galaxy. The war for the survival of humanity was not just fought against the living, but also against the undying horrors of a long-forgotten past. In the 41st millennium, the line between life and death is blurred, and sometimes death is not the worst fate that can befall a soldier of the Imperium. In the dystopian universe of the 41st millennium, the existence of a blank, a being devoid of psychic signature, is a rarity, both feared and revered. I am one such individual, once an anomaly amongst my own kind, but my fate was to become something far more terrifying. Captured by the Necrons, an ancient race of soulless machines, I was to be transformed into a pariah, a fusion of human and Necron technology, an abomination of both flesh and metal. This is my story, a chronicle of my transformation and the loss of my humanity. I remember the day the Necrons came, their skeletal forms emerging from the ground like wraiths from a nightmare. As a blank, I had always felt isolated, my lack of psychic presence making me an outcast. But in that moment of capture, I realized that my unique nature had made me a target. I was taken to a world I later learned was a tomb world, a planet where Necrons slumbered in stasis for millennia. Their structures were geometric, cold, and devoid of any life, a stark contrast to the vibrant chaos of human cities. In the heart of this world, I was subjected to the process of becoming a pariah. My captors were cryptex, Necron scientists whose knowledge of living tissue and mechanical augmentation was unparalleled. The first change was the most painful. Necron technology was grafted onto my flesh, the cold, unfeeling metal intertwining with my biology. Each incision was precise, each integration agonizing. My screams echoed through the silent halls, but my captors were indifferent to my pain. As the days passed, the transformation continued. I could feel my humanity slipping away, replaced by a cold, logical presence. Emotions became distant memories, replaced by a sense of purpose I could not comprehend. I began to see the world differently. My senses were augmented by Necron technology, allowing me to perceive energy fields and electromagnetic waves. The world became a tapestry of information, a stark contrast to the dull hues I had known as a human. But the most profound change was within my mind. The Necrons, beings of pure logic, sought to suppress my human instincts, to make me a perfect weapon against their psychic foes. My thoughts became structured, ordered, my human impulsiveness fading away. I remember the moment I first saw my reflection, a hybrid of metal and flesh, my eyes glowing with an unnatural light. I was no longer the person I once was. I was something else, something more, and yet something less. My first mission as a pariah was a test of my abilities. I was unleashed upon a group of psychic rebels, my presence a void that sapped their strength. I moved amongst them like a specter, my augmented body impervious to their attacks. I watched dispassionately as they fell before me, their psychic abilities rendered useless. In that moment, I realized the horror of what I had become, a predator of souls, anathema to life. But even as I served the Necrons, a part of my human consciousness lingered. Whispered memories of my past life haunted my dreams, a reminder of the person I once was. In a daring act of defiance, I began to resist the Necron programming. It was a subtle rebellion at first, hesitating during a mission, allowing a target to escape. But soon, I found others like me, pariahs who clung to fragments of their humanity. Together, we plotted our escape, our goal to warn the Imperium of the Necron's plans. The rebellion was fraught with danger, our every move watched by the unblinking eyes of our captors. The day of our escape was a maelstrom of chaos. We fought our way through the tomb world, our combined strength a match for the Necron warriors. I felt a flicker of my old self in that battle, a spark of human emotion amidst the cold logic of my new existence. As we fled into the void of space, I looked back at the tomb world, a planet that had been both my prison and my crucible. I was a pariah, a being caught between two worlds, belonging to neither. Now I drift through the galaxy, a renegade from both humanity and the Necrons. I fight not for the Imperium, nor for the Necrons' ancient empire, but for my own sense of self, a quest to rediscover what it means to be human. My transformation was both a curse and a gift. A curse for what I lost, and a gift for the power it bestowed. But in the end, I am still searching for a place in this vast, dark universe where a being like me can belong.